Good morning. Welcome to our second AWS Public Sector Summit, Ottawa. Please help me welcome to the stage Réjean Bourgault, Country Leader, Worldwide Public Sector, AWS Canada.
Thank you, Alexa. I'm thrilled to kick off today's keynote presentation. Wow. My son will say, there's hype today here. I will say, cloud is real today. It's amazing the number of people we have today here. So Alexa, peux-tu dire à l'audience à quoi elle peut s'attendre?
Merci Réjean. La conférence principale est une occasion unique pour en apprendre davantage sur comment le cloud peut stimuler la transformation numérique et aider les organismes du secteur public à réaliser leur mission. Au cours des 90 prochaines minutes, vous entendrez également des témoignages de clients d'Amazon Web Services présentant les résultats concrets qu'ils obtiennent grâce à Amazon Web Services.
Merci Alexa. And thank you all for coming to our second AWS Public Sector Summit in Ottawa. We're so excited to have all you here. So why are we here? Pourquoi nous sommes ici? Just ask yourself this question. Fundamentally, this is a learning conference. We are here to learn new ideas, new concepts, and new services. We're also here because we're all builders and we're passionate about innovation. We are here to understand how AWS Cloud can help our customer and the citizen experience. We are here to learn from our customers and partners. We were not supposed to be here. True story. Last year, at the end of October 29, the first summit in Ottawa, 4 of us grouped together at the Fairmont Hotel. And we started to talk about when we're going to do the next one. We came with the idea, why don't we do it in spring? We do it in May. About a 2 hours debate, October, May, and so on, we locked May. 2 weeks after, we reserved the Shaw Center. In December, we received a call after all was set up by one of our top executives and say, no. This is way, way too early. You just did a summit. Are you saying within 7 months, we're going to do another one? We were right a lot. The growth of number of people in this room is 75% year-over-year growth. That gives you an idea. And our argument were, we have cloud-first policy from Canada government. We have university going all in on AWS. We have lots of people in Ottawa and in Canada who loves innovation. We have a deputy CIO, Alex Binet, pushing cloud. And we were right a lot because in February, the Quebec government announced that they're moving 80% of their server infrastructure to the cloud, to public cloud, within 3 years. So I'm very, very happy about that. So we see a momentum in Canada, all across Canada. Yesterday, we had an incredible AWS Game Day. This is a very fun event. We brought from our event in Las Vegas, reInvent, and we brought it here. This hands-on experience helped participants learn about AWS environment, challenged to come up with ways to solve problems, and based on AWS resource at their disposal. We're going to do a game day at one of the large universities in the West in a couple of weeks from now, just to do the same kind of excitement. The fun continues today with 15 sessions across 3 tracks. My father always tells me, when you go in a conference, bring at least 1 or 2 ID back home. That's my homework for you today. Every moment today, our goal is to bring value to you. This is our commitment back for you to be here today. We hope you leave tonight, some of you tired, inspired, and ready to change the world. So before we begin, I want to give a special thanks to our sponsor. This event will not be possible without them. Thank you to Intel, who has been a partner for years of ours, for more than 10 years, in fact. VMware, Cloud Health by VMware, allows you to consolidate visibility across cloud and on-premises infrastructure. And finally, Veeam is doing incredible work, providing solutions for data protection and cloud backup for public sector customers. Please attend this session this afternoon. I also want to thank our gold sponsor, Hitachi, TELUS, and Workday, and our silver sponsor, and all the exhibitors. So let me give you a perspective, just basically to give the perspective where we are in the cloud. Cloud is growing at a pace we could not imagine 12 years ago. AWS is large and rapidly growing. In Q1 2019, our revenue was $7.7 billion. We grew by 41% year over year, and our run rate business now, based on a 12-month and based on Q1 results, is $30.8 billion. The numbers on the screen are just a testament of how fast our customers have adopted the cloud in order to drive costs down, innovate faster, and increase time to market. So back to my father, last week I was at the CS Summit, the Commercial Summit in London, and I brought this slide back from the summit. Here's another really amazing statistics. Research shows that when customers adopt the cloud, their rate of experimentation goes up exponentially. According to the London School of Economics, 95% of the startup will not be able to enter the market if they had relied on traditional IT model. The world's hottest startup will not exist without the power of cloud and the ability to move quickly and fail fast. This is a lesson for all of us in public sector. So whether it's a new startup, a large enterprise, or public sector organization, we see customers across Canada build and experiment on AWS. Two examples, Government of Ontario with their website running on AWS for years, and with education, we have Athabasca University last year announced at reInvent in Las Vegas going all in on AWS. Those are just two examples of many more. We're going to have today 3 more Canadian customers who are going to talk about their solution on AWS. In Canada, we have hundreds of partners we work with, including permanent consulting partner Onika, based out of BC, and Slalom, as well as advanced partners like Scalar, Source Group, and IT Method, just to name a few. In Canada, to support our growth, we now have over 10,000 employees at Amazon. We have over 450 jobs just on AWS in Canada. We announced 6,300 more jobs in 2018 by 2022. So roughly, we'll have 16,000 employees by 2022. We have hundreds of developers, coders, engineers, software developers, scientists in Vancouver, in Toronto. We have also offices in Victoria and Winnipeg. In Winnipeg, our ThinkBox team provides software for tens of thousands of users across the world, from movie studios to architecture and design firms. We're committed to being members of the community in which we operate. In face of the ongoing flooding here in Ottawa, Amazon has responded to a request from the City of Ottawa, and we pack and ship more than 29,000 relief items, including water, towels, blankets, and hygiene supplies. Thank you. Well, let's talk about our region in Montreal that we launched in December 2016. Since our summit last year, we introduced 20% more services in the region. The new services, one of them very popular right now, is VMware Cloud on AWS, a hybrid option for customers that we introduced in March. We see a lot of demand from many government, many organizations across Canada. Amazon SageMaker, that Glenn's going to talk about it much more, is quickly deployed. It's a solution that quickly helps you deploy machine learning models and no expertise required. This is mainly for software developers. Amazon Comprehend, our natural language processing service that uses machine learning to find insight and relationship in text. And at reInvent, in last November, we launched Comprehend Medical, which allows healthcare customers to quickly and extract medical information, such as medical condition, medical dosage, and personal info from PDF, doctor-patient record, and even doctor notes. We also continue to roll out language support services. For example, Amazon Transcribe is now available in French. You heard Alexa. Alexa is also available in French. And there's a lot of work behind bringing Canadian French. Like we could have just keep Canadian in France, but we decided to bring Canadian French for Alexa that you heard. Let's talk about security. Our customers run every imaginable workload on AWS. Some customers may face local regulation that require certain types of data to reside in country, while some data can live outside of the country. It's you to decide. Our customers make the choice of where they run their workload and store their data, and we never move that data from the region they choose. That's very important. Governments around the world look to AWS Cloud to host some of its most sensitive data. Earlier this year, AWS was awarded protected certification by the Australian Cybersecurity Centre. This allows Australian organizations to store and process highly sensitive data in the AWS Sydney region. Investments like these are designed to empower customers, like our next speaker. As CIO and Deputy Minister of the Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat, Alex Binet is leveraging cloud to transform the federal government to better serve citizens in the digital age. Please help me welcome Alex on stage.
So I've been told I have 7 minutes. Oh, 8 minutes. That's great, and the clock's already ticking. So we'll dive right into it. I was asked to provide an overview of some of the things that we're working on, not just cloud, but generally speaking. But before I start, could I just try to see a show of hands who's from the public sector here? Great, so thank you very much for being here today. You're on a journey of modernization and you're going to show the world what we can do, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come to these kinds of events. And anything we could do to support our modernization agenda, we will be there for you. So, quickly, Canada's journey. Everybody has hopefully seen, if you are the ones that put your hand up, that we have a digital strategy, 3 core themes. Anything that you're going to hear about in the next day or so here or from yesterday, if it's not supporting either being service-oriented and user-centered, open, collaborative, and accessible, or digitally enabled, you're in the wrong space. You're doing the wrong things, and if you can't directly relate what you're doing to one of these 3 items, we would ask you to reconsider whether you're doing the thing the right way or not. Really important that we do these 3 things moving forward. Government is not just about policy development. We serve citizens, and we fundamentally believe that moving to more modern infrastructure is a part of that service delivery strategy. The second thing that we're really keen on is artificial intelligence. We are most likely, and I say most likely because I was told it's being televised or broadcasted. Sorry, I'm showing my age. So I want to make sure that I have all the disclaimers. But most likely, we're the first country in the world to have a modern public sector policy approach or a framework to governing artificial intelligence. This is important to us. We do not think that it is up to the private sector to make social decisions on benefits, on immigration, on life and death decisions. We do, however, believe that we have to work together with the private sector and the technology, and we're really happy with the partnership we have with Amazon on having important conversations like no black box AI engines making decisions on behalf of our citizens. So we have that. We have the world's first algorithmic impact assessment, which will help departments figure out the level of risk around their automation project. Very big difference between figuring out if the canal is open in the winter and the chatbot is wrong versus automating our borders or immigration decisions. We've also working with a vendor and a supplier out of Dallas to develop an ethical switch. So we're going to take the algorithmic impact assessment, and everything that is automated in the Government of Canada is going to start going through an ethical switch, an AI engine to talk to the AI engines. We've got the AI school at the Digital Academy out of the Canada School of Public Service. We also now have 73 qualified vendors that are offering either products or services to help us automate. We have to move away from a day and age where we are asking, and I see all these great Treasury Board submissions come to me, I want to hire 500 people to process data. We still see these things. Now we have no excuse. We have policy cover, you've got tools, you've got support, you've got education at the school. AI is a big, big deal for us. Another thing that we're working on, and that Canada is actually maybe less in a position of leadership, is digital identity. We're a federated country, so we cannot do what the Estonians have done. We cannot do what the Portuguese have done. We have to figure out a federated model to manage identity. A few months ago, all provinces and territories, including the federal government, have ratified something called the Pan-Canadian Trust Framework, which sets the rules for digital ID recognition across jurisdictions. We've now got 3 pilots across Fed-Prov borders where possibly the province can offer federal digital services and vice versa. We're actively working with the banks to do the same thing, insurance companies, tax companies, you name it. So digital identity will become a reality. This year we've started something called Sign in Canada, which is going to be a digital ID recognition engine and program that we're going to be able to actually start building this stuff across the country. So we're pretty excited about that. In combination, we are working on something, or we have developed something called the Canadian Digital Exchange Platform. Those of you that are familiar with Estonia's X-Road, we've got something. We like to think it's better, a little bit competitive, but it's got an open source API store where the departments have now been mandated that any new service that gets designed, we issued this directive 6 months ago, any new service that gets designed must have an API. It must be located in the open source API store, and it's a must. So we're very happy with that. This will enable us to actually start using the same data, possibly, because there's some legislative issues that we're tackling, to actually be able to move to a tell us once service approach for all of government. We've identified all of the legislative roadblocks, and so we're going to be tackling those, and now the technology is actually there. So we're going to be looking to issue directives to mandate the use of DXP across all government services as well. Open government, too excited. Open government, the world is coming to Ottawa. In a few weeks, the Open Government Partnership Summit is going to be held in Ottawa. We're really excited. There's about 2,500 people coming. Canada's ranked first in the world, tied with the UK according to the Open Data Barometer for now. Sole source leadership is really interesting, and that's what we're after, so nothing but the best. We have the world's first open by default public institutions. And we're going to be announcing more open by default pilots. We need to get more content out into the hands of more developers to create more service ecosystems. So that's also something that we're keeping an eye out on, is how do we actually move from open government from a democratic perspective to the point where it's actually got real economic impacts. Canada has no billion-dollar company built on the back of open government data. Right? The Americans have quite a few. Canada has none, so we have to find a way to fix that. Government as a platform is interesting for us. I'm always a slide behind. Government as a platform is interesting for us because of the fact that we increasingly do not believe that we should be the sole providers of the services. So how do we actually, if you look at it, we've been doing it in our taxes for decades. Intuit, TurboTax, other tax providers have been offering tax services on behalf of CRA for years. So how do we do that with other services? How do we do that with social benefits? How do we get a traveling agency, the next time you book your trip down south, to actually renew your passport for you? And we could outsource, so to speak, not outsource, wrong choice of words, but we could actually federate the service, because we'll still offer it. The government of Canada will always offer this service. But how do we actually get third-party providers to offer this service in a digital age? The reality is we have the technology to do that today. What we don't have is the risk appetite, and what we don't have is the culture to take us there, and what we don't have necessarily is a culture of breaking down some of our project into smaller work chunks where we get to a point where we could actually start trialing this thing in a safe space, right? So all that stuff we're working on now. Lastly, cloud is a reality for us, or cloud's a big deal for us. You're here today because it is. Software as a service is very prevalent in our environment. Next gen HR and pay is software as a service. Our borders are moving to software as a service. Our e-procurement is software as a service. Sometime late spring, early summer, we're going to have our protected cloud brokerage service at Shared Service Canada. We already have unclassified cloud brokerage service. It's been in policy since November 2017 that you could do protected B cloud. So we're really trying to open the floodgates here and do this in a way that's coordinated and that manages all the risks and all of the things. And again, we're lucky to have partners that want to work with us on that. 7 minutes is not a long time, by the way. Holy smokes. Got to breathe. Talent Cloud, the last one, is a big deal for us. We want to get to a place where we can offer in the middle of gig economy contractors the opportunity to come in and out of the government more. It takes us a long time to bring someone in. Talent Cloud's an open source solution where we're going to be bringing staffing times down to 30 days. We're already down to 45, but the goal here is you get to come in and out of the public service as you wish, work on projects for 6, 12 to 18 months, maybe go back, go work for other companies, come back in government, but you accumulate benefits and you accumulate your pension as you go through, as opposed to being stuck in a no safety net gig economy. World first. So lots of interesting world firsts for us. In some areas we have to actually catch up, like digital AD, but like all of this is totally determined and directed to the conversations you're going to have in the next few days, or that you've been having as of yesterday for some of you. So thank you very much for being here today. Thank you very much for being part of the journey, and absolutely anything we can do from a public sector government perspective, we're happy to work with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This was very, very great. So, the next speaker, Glenn Gore, our chief architect, straight from Australia. Welcome on stage, Glenn Gore.
Thank you. Wow. Good morning, Ottawa. For those of you listening in French, they tried to give me a French lesson and it went very badly. So big thanks to the translators at the back who are going to have an awesome time translating fast Australian to French. So what I've got is about an hour to go through the breadth and depth of what AWS covers, which is not a lot of time at all to cover what we're doing. And so when you think about this, the first thing I think of when I talk to customers is the global scale of what AWS built over the last 13 years. That we've done. There's 21 regions. And you think about a region as kind of a cluster of data centers that are made up of into availability zones. So for example, in Montreal, we have the Canada region, which has got 2 availability zones. We actually just launched a new availability zone yesterday in India, for example, in Mumbai, to 3, which gives even greater levels of protection. And this choice, you might be going, well, why does this matter? Typically for Canadian government. Well, you'd be surprised how many services actually do run not only within Montreal, but also run outside of Canada. And actually our next customer speaker is going to talk about how they run services globally on this type of platform. Now, if you've got the scale of the platform globally, you also need to have a broad set of services. Right now, AWS has about 165 services, spanning from infrastructure, compute, storage, network, to developer tools to help developers build code, test it, deploy it, machine learning, artificial intelligence, mobile app development, you name it. If it's in the technology space, we're looking at how we can make it simpler for builders, developers, to build the next generation of technology. But there's 2 technology areas that come up a lot when we talk about public sector a lot: storage and security. When you think about storage, there's lots and lots of different choice available to you. You have block level storage. Kind of think about that as the old way of attaching a disk to a server. There's lots and lots of volume options there. You can pick from magnetic spinning drives to solid state drive technology, which is really, really fast, directly attached. But it's kind of confined to a server. And one of the biggest changes we've seen from an architectural perspective has been the ability to separate data from compute. And this is where object stores really come in. Simple Storage Service, S3, was the very first service that AWS launched. It's actually the second service internally. Simple Queue Service was the first one, but S3 was the first one to be launched publicly. And what S3 allows you to do is have this access to infinite scale of storage. Every file is an object. I can have classification of the life cycle of that information on a per object basis if I want, or on a per bucket. And a bucket is, just think of that as a folder of collection services. And I can automatically move that to Glacier, for example, which is a kind of offline storage service. Think about it as like a tape backup, but it's not tape backup. Huge levels of durability, 11 nines of durability. It's incredible. Put that into perspective. If you store 10,000 files over 1,000 years, there's a slight chance you might lose one of them. So this durability is absolutely intense. And this is why it's trusted to underpin some of the biggest data collections on Earth today. You also have file access storage. For example, if you want to be running NFS, for example, and sharing a set of files across a number of servers. And all of this isn't possible if you don't have ways of transferring data in and out of storage. We're going to come back and talk about migration, but there's 12 different ways that you can get your content in and out of AWS. Underpinning all this is security. Now, security, we talk about it at AWS as it's job zero for us. And one of the biggest insights that we've had over the last 13 years, and as I work with customers all around the world, is that if you do not start with security as the foundational layer, you are never, ever going to be able to be as secure as you possibly could by trying to think about security as an afterthought. It's too hard, and it's not built into the psyche. And so when you think about this, security is everybody's job. Every single person. You can't just say it's the security department. It's the security girl's job to do this. Every single person is responsible for ensuring the security of information at every single level. Sometimes it could be that you're just the voice saying, hey, I think this might not look right. Or why do I have access to this when I don't? These certifications are really important. They actually have over 200 services that help you manage compliance, regulation, governance. We have, for example, encryption. This is one of the greatest things I've seen over the years. When I first got into IT, encryption was expensive. It was a trade-off. Am I going to burn CPU cycles and performance against security? Today, encryption is a first-class citizen. There is no penalty or no cost to enabling encryption. Of those 165 services that AWS has, 116 of them support encryption. That's 3 times more than any other competitor in the market. If you think then about encryption, well, encryption's only good as your key management service that manages the keys. And you're starting to see some really advanced techniques when it comes to key management, where for every single file, I'm going to use a different key. I'm going to start rotating the keys. I'm going to give out one-time uses. As you start getting, for example, B2B, B2C environments, people will manage those keys separately. It's a very, very powerful combination. And so KMS, Key Management Service from AWS, is integrated to 54 of those services, which is 4 times more than anyone else in the industry. And so what you're seeing is this is the proof point that security is at the core of what we do. And it's what allows us to achieve some of the things that Rajan was talking about, for example, around the protection status we have in Australia and here in Canada as well. But what I want to do now is introduce our next customer speaker, Nick Hodgson, who's the Chief Technology Officer from DTO, who's super passionate and is using some of these AWS services to help people learn and improve teaching around the world. Please welcome Nick to the stage.
Thanks, sir. Hello, everyone. Wow, Rajan, you introed and you talked about learning. That's so dear to our heart. Anytime you want to come work at D2L, you'd fit right in. You're more than welcome. And Glenn, just some of the things you're talking about around security, and again, near and dear to our heart and what we're dealing with. So, and let's talk a little bit about who we are and what we do, and I'm excited to be here today. Thank you for your attention. It's a gift. So, just looking at some of the themes from today, today's summit, we've got things around migration gotchas, we've got things around securing your systems, CI pipelining, monoliths in transition, not an easy problem, data and the criticality of applied machine learning, and then ultimately it's all foundational, the important cultural shifts that are necessary with any cloud transition. And I'm just looking at that list, D2L has lived a piece of all of those things just in recent years. So I feel what people are going through. For those of you who don't know, D2L is a global, Canadian-based learning technology leader. Our goal is ultimately to transform the way the world learns by supporting learners at every stage of their life. So from early school years through into college and long into their careers. So we support learning in all its forms. We do learning in companies and cities. We do learning in small schools in rural parts of the country and the world. And we also do it entirely online, where the classrooms are all virtual. We support millions of users every day doing this, globally. So I had a great opportunity in the 6 years that I've been with D2L to observe and enable some significant changes in our business. In fact, I was lucky enough to join D2L right after our worst operational event that we ever had. It was literally like closing the doors on hundreds of schools all at once. It was pretty serious. Now, that is something that is long behind us, but it really became a catalyst for our cloud journey. So when I said we're a learning technology company, the emphasis is definitely on the learning part. We spend millions of dollars in every development cycle, and my goal is to put the majority of that time and energy into things that improve the teaching, training, and learning experience for our users. If we as an organization didn't spend the time doing the thing that we're uniquely good at, then we'd be wasting the potential impact that we could have. So what can I say in 5 or 6 minutes? Give you some things that we did. So 3 years ago, we declared at a town hall that we were going all in on AWS, shifting us from running it ourselves to becoming a cloud-native company. We wanted the flexibility in our business and the agility in our work. It changed things almost immediately for us. Our technical teams felt unlocked, as they could now take advantage of services that they hadn't ever been able to in a hybrid world. It made us faster. And with that declaration came some big shifts in our behavior as well. First, a merging of engineering and operations from DevOps, so that our product teams could better own the success of our software in production, and that our operational teams were in the room when that software was being built and designed. Next, we treated everything as code. Configuration changes, security policy enforcement, system observability, client migrations, software deployment methods, all of these things, they all reap significant benefit from the traceability, repeatability, and scalability of having it all be automated as code. We had less errors, we had more rigor in the changes, and smart people could focus on the more meaningful problems. So possibly, though, the most impacting shift was just more transparency. Individual developers now knew how much their choices cost our company. And even better, they could use that knowledge to inform their design, they could experiment with approaches and weigh trade-offs, and that was something that they had no previous ability to see nor affect. So 36 months on, I proudly lead a more evolved and mature software and technology team. We are more accountable to the technology, the choices that we make and their consequences. We can more freely experiment with an ever-expanding toolbox on an hour-by-hour basis to find the best fit of the solution for a problem. And we have lower operational demands on our people while still adding millions of learners every year. So we're not gigantic, but we're also not even remotely small. We partnered with AWS staff and worked out a plan and architecting our approach to do the transition. We moved more than 3 petabytes of data into the cloud. We moved thousands of systems and billions of requests a day. We made mistakes. Like we recreated our colo model in AWS, first out of the gate. We learned not to over-engineer things, and we learned to leverage cloud-native services first. So across our teams, we shared those leading practices with our teams as we skilled up. We gave feedback on new services to AWS, who are amazingly receptive, and we shared our journey with so many people so they could do it too. And as a consequence, we optimized and improved every month. We're still not done. We're always improving. Learning to do anything is an iterative loop. It never gets perfect the first try. So in the end of the all, it was uneventful. We ensured our software and our processes were resilient, and so our customers didn't even notice the transition. But when we talk about cloud native, for us, there isn't any doubt that there are benefits, and they're wide-ranging, from culture and habits to build and deploy. Simple. But the one that I mentioned at the start is absolutely the most valuable thing. It means I can invest in the most important things. I can provide parents visibility to activities for the school boards of Ontario. I can help a university focus on their student retention strategy. I can help a company train new job skills so they can stay competitive in the changing markets. We can look at what an unengaged employee looks like. Someone whose growth mindset is stalled and may not be keeping up with all the rapidly evolving needs of the business and their skills. Then we can help re-engage them, connect them with their peers and mentors, and have them feel excited and supported as they explore their personalized learning path for the next step in their career. We can look at learning activities and material and help determine the effectiveness for learners, highlighting any changes needed to support universal design in learning so that everyone has equal opportunity to education, regardless of the challenges that they face, be them mental, physical, or societal. We can look at a normal school day in southern US, where technology is blended in with class time, and they're creating exciting learning experiences for all these young children starting their first steps on their school path. And then when the region gets hit by several storms in the same week, and schools are closed for a snow day, we can disappoint 200,000 students by keeping the ability to do their classwork. In 2019, we're on the verge of a new decade. It's more important than ever that we spend time working on our mission. We see a future of work where the children in school right now are on a path to graduate into jobs that don't exist yet. We see automation, as mentioned, and AI changing the workforce expectations and requiring frequent upskilling and reskilling for employees to remain effective. We see students demanding that the education that will drive their future aligns more effectively with the needs of industry. And we see data and machine learning and feedback loops are foundational to supporting the educators who have the most important job in the world, helping people learn. So when we foster a culture of learning with engaged teachers and exciting activities at early stages in life, we create adults who value learning throughout their lifetime. And that makes a significant difference for those who work with them, the companies that employ them, and the community they live in. We all at D2L have our reasons on why this matters to us. My 9-year-old son, Yogi, is mine. So I'm thankful to Réjean and the AWS teams. They have been fantastic partners since we started our cloud native adventure. And I know that wherever we want to go next, AWS will be right there beside us. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Nick. I love the passion that DTL has for education and learning, because it actually goes hand in hand. If you think of the pace of innovation that we see in the industry, and it's increasing and it's going to continue to increase at ever faster rates, it puts pressure on the ability to learn. The amount of information that you have to take in every single day is intense, and these learning systems are really key. The other thing Nick touched on, which I love, this is something that's not actually talked a lot, is when you start using cloud and AWS, one of the things you get is this awesome transparency. You see every single thing that you use and the cost of it. And this allows you to start gamifying costs down to the engineers and start having things like, for example, what Nick was showing, cost per login, for example. I love it when I go around and I visit customer sites, and sometimes I see in the engineering teams big monitors on the walls showing cost per whatever widget it is that they're delivering. And it's amazing because it gets in the psyche of how they're engineering. They're not just engineering for technology's sake now, they're engineering in terms of the customer's benefit of what they can do to drive value for their technology. And so linking to that, one of the biggest costs traditionally when it comes to IT has been databases, right? They're locked in, you often use them for a decade plus, and it's something we just kept hearing from customers was, what can we do to help bring some of the benefits of public cloud and DevOps and this agile freedom to the world of databases? And so we listened, fun stat for you all. Over the 13 years, we've launched more than 6,000 feature updates to AWS. 95% come from you. They come from customers. We actually do very little R&D that's not based on customer feedback. And this directs us to knowing where the pain points are and being able to focus on. For example, we have 14 different database technologies at AWS. You can see there on your left, I'm getting confused, traditional databases. These are your relational-based databases. In the middle, you can see purpose-built data such as key value aspects with DynamoDB, document stores, in-memory databases such as Elasticache. These are important. So for example, depending when you're talking about some of these new microservices, if I need to be able to deliver content in milliseconds, DynamoDB is a great choice for that. Or if I want it even faster, that's where I want to use Elasticache, for example. Or I can even use DynamoDB Accelerator in front. We have Neptune, which I think is a great database technology based on graph query language, GraphQL. And what graph databases are really good about is taking sets of data, for example, identities, and working out what the relationships are between these identities and allow you to query based on the relationship between those identities, which is very different to how a database works. So if you think about social networking, they are built on top of graph databases, for example. And so Neptune allows you to have a fully managed service there. TimeStream, again, as we start getting into a world of connected devices and robotics and real-time data streams, that produces an intense volume of data coming at us. But actually being able to put that back into sequential order, because you don't receive this information all at the same time. If you think about, for example, the gaming industry. Anyone here like playing games? It's okay, it's a safe space, you can put your hands up, your boss won't see. So you imagine you're playing a game, and I spend a lot of time on the plane. So I play the game while I'm waiting at the airport. I get on the plane and I put my phone into flight safe mode, which means I'm not connected to anything. I play the game for up to 15 hours if I'm flying back to Australia. I get off the plane and I re-enable the network, and now my phone's trying to upload 15 hours worth of usage data of that game, but it's out of sync, because while that 15 hours, everyone else has been uploading data. What time series allows you to do is actually put that back into the right sequence really effectively, and then do time-based queries against that so you can see what is happening. And that's actually a very, very hard problem when you start scaling it up to millions of devices or millions of people sending time-based data all out of sync. Last but definitely not least is Quantum Ledger database down the bottom there, QLDB. There's been a lot of hype in the industry about blockchain technologies. But if you kind of distill it back, there is a big need for a centrally trusted digital store of records that when I store something, I can see the transactional history and that it's kept cryptographically safe and secure. And that's really what QLDB does, for example. We also have migration services, Migration Hub, which allows you to have access to tools to help you migrate, as well as the database migration service, which has helped customers migrate already more than 120,000 databases across to AWS. But some of these are, if you take it a step further, we announced Amazon Aurora a couple of years ago. And what Aurora is we looked at relational databases, which, by the way, are the most common database still used today. And we thought, well, what can we do if we reinvented this natively for the cloud? Now, we've had AWS RDS, Relational Database as a Service, which is very popular. It allows you to run Microsoft SQL, MySQL, Postgres on EC2, and it takes care of a lot of the undifferentiated heavy lifting about managing a database. But you still had to make decisions about, for example, how am I going to protect the availability of my database? Do I want to replicate it in multiple availability zones? How do I deal with the read clones, for example? There's a lot of things that you had to do. And we looked at this and thought, well, if we were to write a database engine today natively for the cloud, we'd do things completely differently. We'd use some of the lessons we learnt from storage technology and being able to replicate that across multiple data centers and build that natively in. We would disconnect the ability to scale the compute aspects of a database and the transactional engine from the storage performance and divorce the two apart so you can scale either one independently. And this is what Amazon Aurora is. It's been incredibly popular by customers. And what I love about it is it's based on the same standards of connectivity that MySQL and Postgres use, which is both very popular. And the result has been it's 5 times faster than MySQL, 3 times faster than Postgres, for example. It's highly available and durable, and it meets and exceeds a lot of the benefits that you've had from your traditional databases from other vendors at 1/10 the cost. By the way, you can turn this on and off as you feel like. It's not like you have to buy a contract for 3 or 5 years and then have an order to come around and say, hey, using 1 extra CPU, we're going to fine you for it. Again, this comes back to the transparency of you pay for what you use when you use cloud. It simplifies databases massively. And as a result, Amazon Aurora has been the fastest growing service in the history of AWS. It's used by tens of thousands of customers all around. It's used right here in Canada by Duproprio, for example, Quebec-based real estate website that use it to help them scale. Or Mitel Networks, also another Canadian example. One of the best things about Aurora that customers love is it just simplifies the complexity of creating highly durable and resilient database architectures. It's automatically scaled across the availability zones. You can even do serverless Aurora now. So bringing that cost down even further as you go through these. And one of the great benefits of Aurora is if you're doing high transactional volumes through it, where there's a lot of parallel transactions, it scales beautifully. It's just in that family of databases though. Because you want to have choice. This is the importance of having breadth and depth of services to you as builders. There is no single right solution for everybody. Often when it comes to architecture, it's trade-off. What is the set of requirements and which needs am I going to trade against the benefits and the costs that are there? You can see here some of the different database technologies. In-memory database for that low latency. Graph database, we talked about time series ledger, key value, and document. We're going to come back to key value because this is one, which is Amazon DynamoDB, which has been a very, very popular, those who have been around in the industry for a while might have heard it referred to as NoSQL, which I really don't like that term. But DynamoDB has been around for a long time. It underpins some of the biggest websites that are on the internet today. It's really good at dealing with key value pairs. But what I like about this is a proof point that even though it's an old service for us, you can continue to innovate and iterate based on your feedback and add new features to it. For example, we added global tables to DynamoDB. This allows you to replicate a DynamoDB table across regions. You are in control of it. So you get to choose which regions you want to replicate that to. We don't do it on your behalf, so it maintains that security model right at the very start. You can do on-demand backups. So for example, if you have terabytes and terabytes of data in DynamoDB, I can back it up instantaneously or within seconds, and there is no performance impact to my database. I'm not taking it offline for hours and hours to do those backups. You can do point-in-time recovery to 35 days into the past, for example, at any point. I want to restore it back to midnight last night, 3 days ago, Thursday last week, really, really importantly. And then, favoritely, if any of you have been using DynamoDB in the past already, you'll know some of this, but one of the challenges with DynamoDB was you had to specify the capacity in advance. It was kind of like how many read units and write units. And it's just good because it gave you control, right? You could manage the cost. But that wasn't good for bursty workloads where things happen unexpectedly. And this happens a lot in public sector. Things like, for example, in Australia where I'm from, we unfortunately get a lot of natural disasters. And the thing is, you can't always forecast them. They come unexpectedly. And so being able to, for some of the local government bodies in Australia to instantaneously burst and scale by using, for example, read-write capacity on demand is a big enabler for those types of workloads. And again, reliable performance at any scale. Don't think that you have to be at massive scale to be using some of these technologies. DynamoDB is perfect if you're writing microservices, for example, and you just want to contain session data, for example. It's really small, perfectly used. Or if you are, for example, companies like Lyft, fastest growing rideshare company in the US right now, who use it to track all the GPS coordinates of every single trip, which is at the other end of the scale, massive scale and volume. When you take this all together, that choice of databases, I mean, this is just a perfect time to be a developer because it just gives you freedom to innovate and choose. And what I see as a pattern from customers is often they will change what database they use as their maturity of the technology increases, as the skills within their organization changes, and the use case grows over time. Don't think about this as you have to make a decision once for the database you're going to use and you're stuck with it for 5 years. This is one of the biggest changes that AWS brings is you can shift and move as you see fit. All right, so we talked about databases. The other big trend in the industry right now, machine learning, artificial intelligence. And to put it simply, our philosophy at AWS is really to put machine learning in the hands of every developer, data scientist, every builder. Why? Because there are just not, simply put, there are just not enough skilled people in the industry that can help meet the demand of organizations. The number one question I get at the moment, where do we find the talent to help us do artificial intelligence projects? First thing is, well, you better have a lot of money to hire the few people that are there. They're incredibly expensive resources, and they get to pick and choose who they want to work for. But if you look at the history within Amazon, we've had a long history, 20 plus years actually, of using machine learning. It started with the recommendation engine on Amazon.com. When you bought a product, it would say people also like this, for example. Then moved into supply chain management for us, making sure we've got the right products at the right locations so we can fulfill things like our Amazon Prime promise of delivery in under an hour, depending which city you are in the world. Then leads to Prime Air with the drones, which uses huge amounts of AI and ML for computer vision to make sure the landing site is clear, for example, route optimization. Alexa, which we heard this morning, not only talking in English, but Canadian French as well. She also does an Australian accent, which is really weird as well. It just draws words out. Oh, Amazon Go. If you haven't seen Amazon Go, it was an idea we had, which was, why do you have to queue to pay for the goods you grabbed in a store? What if it just kind of, the store recognized what you took off the shelves and just charge you automatically? It's kind of like validating shoplifting in some ways. Interestingly, the premise that we work on this thing called working backwards process in Amazon, where we start with what is the problem we're trying to solve. And Amazon Go started with the premise of, we want to remove the lines when you check out. The irony is, it was so popular that we created lines to get into the store instead of getting out. So again, little failures that we learn as we go through. But if you look at this, there's tens of thousands of customers using machine learning on AWS all around the world. And again, customers here in Canada, for example, New Data Security, Flynn Group of companies, construction. You're seeing, doesn't matter what industry you're in, the use of AI/ML can help. And this is the simplest way I find to think about the AI/ML stack. It's really simple. There's 3 layers to this. At the top, you have AI services. These are for people who want to have the benefits of artificial intelligence, but you don't want to know how it actually works. In the middle, you have machine learning services. These are, for example, data scientists who want to be able to interact with the model and train. I'm going to go through this in a little bit more detail in a second. But they don't want to know what happens below at that bottom stack, which is the infrastructure layer. This is the machine learning engineers themselves. And so one of the best things to think about is, which layer of the stack do you want to be operating at? By the way, you don't have to stay within one. And again, like databases, you can move between those stacks as you choose. For different projects, different initiatives, if you're doing proof of concept, sometimes starting right at that top and just seeing, can this have a proof point that it can do what I want? And then if I'm going to scale it, I'll start dropping down through the stacks, for example. But if you jump into the infrastructure stack, for example, one of the things we announced last year was that when you're working at scale, you need huge amounts of compute to do training and inference and run some of these models. And so we developed the P3DN instance type. It's a bit of a code word. But what this does is it gives you access to just massive amounts of GPU performance and GPU memory, more than any other instance type available from any provider, at a pretty good cost too. And so this drives the use cases, because as we know over time, this democratizes the access of technology to everybody, driving that cost down and the performance as you go through. On top of that infrastructure, there's a lot of choice around what is the machine learning framework that you are going to run. The 2 big ones, for example, TensorFlow, MXNet. Again, there's no right or wrong in what you pick. A lot of it comes down to what are the skills that you have. For example, TensorFlow seems to be used more for computer vision, for example. MXNet for speech and recommendation systems, for example, as a general statement. By the way, a lot of customers don't use one or the other. They're using multiples in combination as they go through this. But TensorFlow definitely seems to be the flavor for machine learning engineers. It's got a really vibrant community around it. And what I love is that AWS is the platform of choice to run TensorFlow. Actually, 85% of all TensorFlow workloads in the cloud run on AWS. Why? have the best infrastructure to run this as you go through this. We've also made some tweaks to it. So for example, when you look at performance efficiency of these resources, you need a lot of GPUs. Now, GPUs, they're kind of, you've got compute, graphical processing units, they're really good at parallel processing. But they're also pretty expensive. And when you look at the linear scaling of TensorFlow, as you start to think, well, what happens if I've got 256 GPUs? It's only using 65% of it, which is pretty low. That's a lot of wasted money and resources sitting there. With AWS optimized TensorFlow, you can get that up to 90%. Or to put that into a different number, it means your workload training, for example, is twice as fast on the same infrastructure, just by using the optimizations we use. What about inference? Now, those of you who don't work in machine learning AI every day, the best way to think about this is you have models that you train with data. And then once you have that trained model and you're applying, for example, every time you talk to Alexa and ask her to say something, she's inferring what it is you're saying to give you a result. And actually, if you look at the inference, that's the bulk of the cost. You only train a model once or twice a week for most people, even fewer. It's incredibly computationally intensive, but you're not doing it all the time. Whereas inferring, you could be doing millions to billions of times every single day. You think about image recognition going through, speech recognition. And so we looked at this and thought, well, there's ways that we can simplify this. Can we use, for example, Amazon Elastic Inference, which allows you, instead of having to use big, heavy, expensive compute instances, can I use smaller, cheaper ones and attach GPUs and give control as to how much of a GPU do I want to allocate? And by doing this, you can reduce cost by 75% just by doing that alone. And again, it's about making it easier for you to experiment and innovate and drive tests. We're taking that same technology and putting it into silicon and using our own Annapurna Labs, which makes custom hardware for AWS, and creating AWS Inferential, which will be coming out in late 2019. And this takes what Elastic Inference is doing, takes it a step further, where you'll get 10 times the performance compared to Elastic Inference. So this is going to have huge benefits to bringing these costs down. Amazon SageMaker. So what SageMaker allows you to do is, it's kind of like a managed service that makes it a lot easier to do three main tasks that you need to do with machine learning. First task is build. You can use Jupyter Notebooks, which is, again, open source based. I can use SageMaker Ground Truth, for example, to annotate my training data. So for example, if I'm doing computer vision, this is a cat, this is a dog, this is a horse. And it can actually do that using machine learning itself and take the human element away, because it can be incredibly tedious to go through millions and millions of images, annotating every single one. You can choose how you're going to build. You can select over 200 different algorithms from the store, what you want to pick. And it also has reinforcement learning as part of the models as well. We'll come back and talk about one of the examples of how you can use reinforcement learning. But this is kind of, you did a good job, you did a bad job, and constantly just giving feedback to an algorithm so it can learn as it goes. So once you've kind of built the model and selected which algorithm is right, I need to train it. And as I train this, I want to optimize it, I want to be able to tune it, I want to be able to, for example, optimize that model as I go through. And so SageMaker Neo can do that automatically for you and get you 2 times the performance improvements automatically. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about what's happening behind the covers. AWS does that on your behalf. And then finally, one-click deployment. You just specify how much compute or how many instances do I want this to kind of scale, min and max, and it will work out the rest. And as your load comes up and down, it will automatically scale up and down, managing that for you. And again, tens of thousands of customers using this. Shaw Cable Systems here in Canada again. Coveo, who's using this for using AI to help people find information more intelligently, for example. One of our customers, I think, uses this really well, Formula One racing. They use this a lot because you don't realize, but a modern day Formula One car has 200 sensors that's generating millions of data points per second. Why? Because they're trying to reduce that lap time by every single millisecond they can. And you can imagine how many variables there are that they can tune and optimize on that race car. Perfect use case of feeding into SageMaker. And so they use SageMaker to take all of that input data and these billions of data points across a race to come up with estimations of which car setup is going to have the optimal lap time result, for example. And they don't have to worry about the infrastructure at it, they just worry about the data in and the data out and how it relates to race performance. And at the top you have AI services. So as I said, the best way to think about this is I don't want to know how machine learning works, I just want to have the benefits of it. And so you can use it for doing vision and image recognition, video recognition as well. You can extract data from text, and it's quite advanced. It can even understand tables, for example. Rajan was talking about, for example, medical comprehend as well, where it can understand context of medical records. For example, you'll see some other things. Poly, transcribe, translate. There's a lot of services here. These are really easy to get started. They're all APIs. You can literally just feed data and documents into it and get the benefits as it comes in. And the best thing for you is these models, they're always learning themselves. It's fascinating to see what image recognition could pick up when it was first launched and what it can pick up today. It's amazing the amount of detail it has. What about forecasting and recommendation? We took some of the technology directly used within Amazon and making that available to you as well. So you can have accurate time series forecasting as to what's going to happen in the future, which is great, again, for supply chain management. What about if I want to personalize? Again, one of the things I hate when I'm using any type of website is when it just treats me like everybody else. When it's customized to me and it recognizes, hey, actually I have these preferences and I can do with it, it's much easier for me to navigate my way through that. Now you might be looking at this and going, well, that's great, Glenn, the machines have been learning a lot. What about for the humans? Well, there's a lot there. There's the Amazon Machine Learning University that's made available to you, which is the same content that we're using to put tens of thousands of our own developers, shifting them from software development engineers to machine learning engineers. There's learning paths for developers, data scientists, business decision makers, and data platform engineers as you go through that. So you don't have to be a pure tech to get something out of it. We actually just launched a couple of weeks ago certification. So you can not only learn about this, but you can prove your knowledge and have a certificate saying that you're an AWS ML practitioner, for example. We also have the Amazon Machine Learning Solutions Lab. So if you're looking at this and you think, I have a really unique use case and I want some help from AWS on how I could build this, this is what the Solutions Labs do. They'll come in, they'll help you brainstorm the idea, help you with the custom modeling. And by the way, this custom modeling, it remains yours at all time. It's your IP. We'll help you train it and work side by side on site with you as you go through. So it's a really great way to learn. One of the biggest areas of machine learning, though, is when it comes to computer vision. The amount of information that vision can convey is incredible, but if you've ever tried to get started with computer vision, it can be incredibly hard. And so what we did was we took all that feedback from customers and created Deep Lens, which is really simply integrates with SageMaker, allows you to train a model on vision data and deploy it to an edge device like Deep Lens, and you can start testing that within 10 minutes. It's a really, really quick way. You can just buy it online, and it's really good. But we thought that's not enough. What if we gave it wheels? And so we put wheels on Deep Racer, and this is on Deep Lens, and created Deep Racer, which is really cool, because the thing is, this is really important for universities and education sector, which is if you can see the impact that code has, it's a lot easier to learn. When you're going to go, hey, what do I do with cornering? And the robot goes running off and crashes into the wall. Maybe I need to do something different. It's really, really good. Actually, we took this and we've created a deep racing league. So you can actually do this online or physically if you go to some of the other summits where they'll actually have the race tracks there. But virtually you can do this online. You can race a virtual deep racer. If you win and you kind of have the fastest lap times, you'll be able to come to reInvent and compete for the world championship points. Right now, Korea has the world record at 7.99 seconds around the track. So Canada, I reckon you can give it a go. There's heaps of information there, too much for me to cover in more detail, but if you go to ai.aws, there's huge amounts of information, labs, videos, content that you can look at in terms of how you get started. But to go through some of how the opportunity of this is going to be used, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome to the stage the director from the Chief Information Officer of ICED, Mohammed Friendly, to the stage.
everyone. Bonjour à tout le monde. Mon nom est Mohamed Frendi. Je suis le directeur responsable de l'adoption cloud pour Innovation, Sciences et Développement Économique Canada. What to say after a presentation like this? I feel like a little kid in a Toys R Us. I want them all, and I want them all now. Now, can we have them? Yes, we can. They're all at click's reach. So for today, I'll be a little bit less rich in terms of feature I'll be presenting. I'll tell you a little bit about our journey to cloud at ISED. So I'm very honored to be here to tell you a little bit of what we've done, yet what we have to do. We accomplished a lot in the cloud related to the amount of time we've been spending since July, the establishment of the cloud vehicle, but yet we have a lot to accomplish. Why? With regards to the amount of work we have to do to workload migrate in alignment to the TBS cloud first adoption strategy, with the amount of all the experimentation and nice work we can do in the cloud. Personally, I envy my team members because they got a chance to experiment that hands-on. So how did we start our journey to cloud? Actually, surprisingly, I don't know if we were smart or it was just by chance, we started by containers, and it happens that the Cloud Native Computing Foundation recommends that as first step to go to cloud, the best way would be to start with containers. So we started years ago to experiment with containers, Docker, on different platforms. And the moment the cloud vehicle was put in place, for us, it was just kind of the paradise. We started looking at all the tools and the solutions we can take advantage of. So the moment that cloud vehicle was established, for us, we thought cloud comes with lots of tools, with lots of powerful solutions, but it comes with lots of responsibility. We have to take responsibility of securing our perimeter, of offering services to the different business partners, onboarding them, ensure that our applications are running in a secure way, knowing that, particularly for the Government of Canada, we're accountable to our citizens to ensure data privacy, security, and so on and so forth. So in parallel, something I'm sure everyone here is hearing, our IT shops, we hear a lot from our business partners that you guys IT take too long to deliver projects and you cost us too much. It kind of sounds like something that is normal. We heard the same thing over and over and over from our business partners. So back in August, I committed to my boss, which I must admit was a little bit suicidal, to deliver a digital platform that is kind of pieces of Legos that allows fast delivery of business applications in 3 months. When we started, we didn't have architecture, we didn't have anything. The only one condition I put in front of my boss is I want to develop this fully in the cloud. So we've started end of August, and we've delivered the first version in October, and we were here actually mid-October at the first summit, AWS Public Summit, to present that journey and the results. So obviously, knowing that building the center of expertise is not a matter of one training, there's a lot to learn and different skills and lots of change management and lots of redirection of type of skills, from manual work, from over-specialized in infrastructure or whatever, to something that is different, that is offering lots of automation. So we continued maturing that center of expertise with trainings, with workshops, collaboration with different departments, as well as external partners. And as part of our workload migration to cloud, we have hundreds of workload and thousands of servers to migrate to cloud in alignment to the TBS, as I said, cloud adoption strategy. We've partnered with AWS Professional Services to run through their way of migrating to cloud. Why did we partner with them? They did hundreds, if not thousands, of migrations around the world. So in French, we say, mieux vaut s'adresser à Dieu qu'à ses saints. Talk to God better than to its saint. So we spoke with them, we partnered with them, and their way of migrating to cloud is in 3 phases. The readiness assessment to see where you are, the planning, which allows you really to detail how are you going to migrate and bring you up to a good level of readiness to start migrating, and then the velocity phase where you start really migrating applications and support them in the cloud. So we did the 2 first phases. We did it very aggressive timelines, usually takes 3 to 4 months, and we did it in 9 weeks. And very special thanks to the AWS Professional Services. So in parallel, all of this, we're doing lots of things in the same time, super excited about that. We are proud to have led the delivery of the Government of Canada API store. It started back in June, again, no architecture, no solutions, nothing, and we managed to have it in production on the 2nd of April. So, what is this? Yeah. Okay, so what are the successes and the failures we had through our very short journey to cloud? We had the chance to run many proofs of concepts. The idea was, I'm thinking of a technology, I go, try it, hours, days, weeks, we're done. And actually, in the first few weeks of our cloud adoption, we were able to run around 20 POCs in a month. From hours, as I said, to the longest POC we ran was 4 weeks. In 2.5 months, remember I said 3 months I committed? We did it in 2.5 months, thanks to a heroic team. They were really superstars. And the cloud also and containers platforms allowed this flexibility and this rapidity to develop. And in less than 9 months, we delivered the GC API store that is a game changer. In alignment to what Alex Binet was saying, this is really introducing a different paradigm to develop services, whether internally to the government to reuse and share knowledge and fast track the delivery of project, but also to externals. The idea at some point for a government, at least that's personal hope, is we become a services delivery group versus applications delivery. We provide services and then we let the people from outside or inside consume them and build more complex business applications. We run other things, such as automated translation, where we partnered with an internal business partner and translation of documents that usually take 3 to 4 weeks for them, annual, etc. We were able to do it in a day, including the human review. And we are currently in the midst of running a pilot on blockchain to support our steel industry. As you know, there is a little bit of a trade war. Ooh, French, English is always... So trade war, and we are kind of forced by our neighbor in the south to demonstrate that our steel we're selling them is not coming from outside and it's truly Canadian. Otherwise, we're going to be having some extra taxes. So did we have failures? Yes, we did. Lots of failures. Actually, we failed more than we succeeded. The idea behind is I don't see them as failures, it's just steps or stepping stones towards success. We learn from each failure. So I like the people saying fail fast, but I also like adding this little additional saying as long as you learn. Because if you fail fast and you keep failing in the same thing, it's called insanity. So what changed in terms of paradigms for us? We've moved from waiting, months to spin up infrastructure, weeks to develop something, and release management, and all these meetings, to something that goes into hours and sometimes minutes. Am I saying that we have everything automated in ISED? No, but we are at least embracing that automation as much as possible. What a machine can do, a human should not do it. A human should do something of more intellectual value. And actually, by adopting such paradigm, we free time to innovate and be more agile in our delivery of services. So what do we need? To me, innovation requires or is articulated around 5 main pillars. The right people. When I look at people, I'm thinking of the working level, the delivery guys, the guys in the trenches who need to be strongly skilled or at least open-minded and skilled to learn very fast. Strong management support, because all management also needs to adopt the forgiveness approach of let the team fail and as long as they learn. And to tell the truth, a little bit of an anecdote. When we started our journey to cloud in July, I asked my team to move some of our COTS we used to CI/CD, continuous integration delivery, and I knew by seeing them what they were doing, they were to fail on certain things, but I didn't want to tell them don't do this or don't do that. I thought, let them do it, and they will be learning out of it, and that was exactly the case. After the fact, they were a little bit stressed, and when they came to me, I think we screwed up on such and such. I smiled and I laughed actually. What did you learn? Yes, we did such and such and such. That's the key. So the right mindset. The right mindset is the mindset of experimentation. Try things, and embrace change. And change the paradigm of I build it and I throw it over the fence to the guy who's going to support it, move more to a DevOps approach where you build it, you run it, so you better build it right. The right tools, and in our context, as I said in the beginning on one of the projects, is I wanted to do it in the cloud. Being in the cloud allows you to try so many services in so much time. You avoid procurement, you avoid time to carve out manually infrastructure, you avoid all these challenges we usually have. And for our department, as I said in the beginning, we adopted OpenShift Containers platform, and this also is something that is an enabler for rapid delivery of applications. The right practices, I was introducing this by saying that just CI/CD and DevOps, infrastructure as code. Infrastructure as code is script things out. So we move to more templating and something that you can spin up with a script versus someone, you ask him for a VM, he's going to go personally try to do it, how many cores, how many this, and you know how long it takes. And every time, you're repeating the same mistakes. And the right partners, very key, and I use the word partner, not a vendor. You need to behave as one. The success is a collective success, and a failure is a collective failure. So having skin in the game makes people really collaborate. And I don't limit this to external partners. Even internal partners is important, and I would mention just in here the GC API store was a key project for government. What I've noticed, lots of great collaboration across different government departments. So to my cloud team and API team, you are my heroes. I don't know if there are a few in here in the room. That's really thumbs up. So what is left for us to do? A lot. As I said in the beginning, we've done a lot, but there's a lot to do. We need to continue collaboration with TBS and SSC on key enablers, such as protected B cloud, such as dedicated links, such as Active Directory, email, security of the perimeter. All of these are key things we need to be able to start adopting cloud at a wider range. We need to move from, we finished the migration readiness planning, we need to move now into the velocity where we start really moving workload over to the cloud. But to do that, we need to ensure that our center of expertise is mature enough and the mentalities and the changes happened so we can support this correctly. So, as much as it's good to invest in technology, it's critical to invest in people. And I think our colleagues that came on the stage before spoke a lot about building skills and building them very well. So overall, if we did it at I said, everyone can do it. We're not superstars. We're just people like everyone else. Sky is the limit when you get to the cloud, and put the effort to experiment that. So, quick IT joke. I don't know if it speaks to everyone. What I mean from this is analysis is paralysis. People tend to try, particularly in the context of government, because we are accountable to citizens, we'd like to make sure that there is no failure. So we waste and spend time to analyze and analyze and analyze. The best way is start doing it by doing risk management. Don't pick your most sensitive workload and start moving it to cloud, because if failure happens, you're not going to be forgiven. However, take advantage of small, less sensitive workload and try use them. And as I said, for us, for example, we picked our Jira. That was the first thing we moved to the cloud. It went with lots of mistakes. We've learned a lot of it. So in the beginning, I spoke about Cloud Native Computing Foundation. I encourage you to take a look at the website. There's lots of good material and lots of open source tools to allow you to adopt cloud or experiment. And thank you very much. Merci.
Thank you, Mohammed. I love the story about trying and failing. It reminds me of my favorite quote, which is from Joy Oito, the head of MIT Media Labs, which he says, if you want to increase the pace of innovation, you've got to lower the cost of failure. And failure means you're trying. I love it when I talk to a CIO or a CTO and I say, what have you failed at recently? And they say nothing. Well, you're not trying hard enough, is kind of how I interpret that. All right, so we've talked about databases, we've talked about breadth and depth, we've talked about AI, machine learning. Let's talk about migration, because that's really, if you're not migrating to the cloud, a lot of these benefits you can't get there. So how do we help customers move faster to AWS? Well, there's really 4 things you focus on. It's not just about apps. It's data transfer and storage, the database migration itself, app migration, and then the migration of resources. So, we talk about data transfer and storage. There was 12 different ways to get in there. I'm not going to go through them all, but there's everything from physical devices such as Snowball, which you can plug in and it encrypts the data for you, GPS tracked, you can ship it to the region and transfer, direct connect, secure storage gateway services. There's a lot of things. There's actually sessions today which will dive into this in more detail. When it comes to app migration, it's all about partnership. We have some great partnerships with SAP, for example. I was just talking a couple of weeks ago with Lion Brewery, who moved their first big app they moved to AWS. They actually started with the entire SAP environment. Why? Because it was at the foundation of everything they want to do, even from an innovation front. VMware, a great partner, it's being used a lot by customers. It helps them migrate to AWS and use the same management environment and tools that they know and have the skills of to now be able to manage whether it's on-premises or within AWS. So it's simplifying, it's lowering that barrier of cost of entry for them. And then there's Microsoft Windows. Actually, we host tons of Windows instances. And it's been growing at more than 400% in the last 3 years as well. So this growth is continuing to go. It's hundreds of thousands of customers using Windows to AWS, including, for example, customers like Autodesk, which has been running Windows on AWS for over 10 years, or Salesforce, who has over 10,000 Windows instances running on AWS today. What about migration of resources? Actually, there's some great resources right outside there in the Partner Expo. That is a big part of having a successful migration, is having someone else who's done this many times to help you on that journey. And you use things like the Cloud Adoption Framework, which can give you structure, or use the AWS Marketplace, where some of the same software and vendors that you use today in on-premises also have AWS cloud-native versions of their products and services as well. So single-click deployment makes it really easy. What about hybrid? Doesn't matter how aggressive you may want to be in your migration. And I hear people say all the time, we'll move everything really quickly. The reality is it's going to take many organizations many, many years to migrate everything across. So you're going to be in this in-between state where I've got my on-premises environments and I have applications running in AWS. And that's what we term as hybrid. And then again, there's lots of technology here that can make this easier for you. Direct Connect, linking the networks together safely and securely. Outpost, for example, which will extend AWS infrastructure into your facilities, that's coming out soon. Snowball Edge for compute optimize. Or again, VMware Cloud, another really great technology there to help you with this. And the momentum for VMware Cloud on AWS is growing a lot. But to kind of wrap this up on migration, I just want to leave you with a couple of insights that I've noticed. The first thing when it comes to migrations is, what does a successful migration look like? And it actually comes to this question. If everyone in your organization doesn't understand why you were moving to AWS in the first place, they're going to have differing ideas as to what was the benefits they were getting. Was it really about reducing costs or retiring technical debt, or was it to increase agility? So the first thing I'd say to you is, when you are doing any type of migration project, have absolute clarity of purpose around that migration. Why are you doing it? And make sure everybody understands what the benefit is going to be before you even do the first migration. Because at the end, everyone will agree that the benefit has been achieved. That's insight one. Second one is, there's a lot of talk about retiring technical debt in the industry. And I personally really hate the way that sometimes this is defined in the media. Because a lot of people just interpret this that technical debt is just anything that's old. You've got a 10-year-old system, it's technical debt. That's not true. Technical debt, I define it as it's any technical decision that becomes a liability for you to innovate. That is the definition of technical debt. And if you think about it that way, I see startups who generate brand new services using all the buzzwords, serverless computing, microservices-based architectures in a DevOps environment, and they accumulate tech debt straight away because because you're using the fun, shiny new technologies doesn't mean you're making the right decisions. And if you have bad APIs, you have spaghetti code, that is technical debt that will hold you back immediately. If you have an old system and it's got a great API, well-defined, and doesn't need to change, leave it alone. Focus on the other areas as you go through. So technical debt doesn't need to be old. And if you want to reduce technical debt on new systems as you go forward, the best way to think about this is before you even write a line of code, think about how you're going to retire this new service. How am I going to remove it out of the environment? What are the abstraction points, the API, the data? And if I understand that, I've already started architecting my new services in a way that has minimal technical debt going forward. So with that, thank you very much for having me. I'm going to introduce the Head of Public Policy for AWS Canada, Nicole Foster, who's going to complete the rest of the keynote. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being here and part of this day of learning. And so when we're talking about the public sector and a lot of the trends that we see around the world, we know that one of the issues that all of our customers face is really that skills gap. So I want to talk a little bit about what some of the other learning opportunities after today are that are open to you to actually close that gap, either for yourselves or your colleagues. The first one is our signature program called AWS Educate, and it's an online learning pathway that you can use to accelerate your cloud learning. We have over 70 institutions in Canada that already have access to this. C'est aussi disponible également en anglais et en français. And what's really exciting about this is as you complete, or as students complete the different learning pathways, it connects them to a job board where they can apply for jobs that require that skill. And so while we have our jobs that are open for some of those pieces up on the job board, and so do our partners, so can our customers. So we'd really like you to get involved as well. And if there are jobs that you'd like to post on our job board as part of this program, we'd really love you to take a look at it. You can become a recruiter, and you can, if you have more questions, you can speak to our AWS Educate booth in the Expo Hall. The next one is DigiGov. So DigiGov we launched at our summit last October as a pilot, and we're really excited that it is now continuing as an ongoing program. It will be delivered also now through the Canadian School of Public Service, which is the training arm for the Government of Canada, and it facilitates the training needs for more than 200,000 government employees. C'est un programme aussi disponible en anglais et en français. Laval University will be offering it for the first time in French on July 13th in Quebec City. We will also be continuing to work with the University of Ottawa's Professional Development Institute to deliver this as well. And the Institute is also delivering other core AWS content and learning content. The next one they're offering is June 4th to 6th, and it's going to be architecting on AWS. And it is open to anyone who wants to advance their learning on AWS. We are also very proud that we get to work with some of the most amazing builders in Canada. And last year when we were here, when I was visiting Ottawa, we met Aaron Kennedy, who founded Robot Mission. And the mission of Robot Mission is an issue that we're hearing more and more about all the time, which is to pick up garbage off of beaches. And her model, what's so interesting about it, is that it's so easy replicable around the world because she can produce those robots with a 3D printer. So Erin is here today, and I'd like to welcome her up on stage. Please help me welcome Erin. Thank you. So we have one of the robots here. I don't know if it has a name, but the first thing I want to do is thank you for being here and to announce that we are really excited to award you with a $50,000 grant in credits on the cloud and cash to help you further your mission. So we're very excited about that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about this guy.
Absolutely. So at Robot Missions, what we want to do is help the environment using robotics. So this robot here is one of our prototypes. Its name is Bowie.
He does have a name.
Yeah. And what Bowie does is it navigates on beaches to collect the plastic into its container, so that way the plastic doesn't go back into our waterways. Now, why is this important? It's important because by 2050, it's predicted that there's going to be more plastic than fish in our oceans. Now, this really keeps me awake at night, and it inspires me to think of what are some really exciting and innovative ways where we could make this more efficient to solve or tackle this challenge. And so, of course, with AWS services, it's going to be really exciting because we'll be able to collaborate with so many people around the world using this robot as a platform.
Well, we are really, really excited to be partnering with you. So thank you for the opportunity to work with you. And before you go, I'm going to channel my inner Ellen DeGeneres and welcome my colleague up on stage because we have another gift for you, just as a token of our appreciation. So Rajan and Glenn are coming up. It's an AWS Deep Lens race. It's the same technology you saw in the racer with machine learning capability. So. Thank you. We're going to do a quick photo. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Erin.
Thank you so much.